Hello everyone, I am back for another little adventure with our jelly plate. Today we're going to be using texture plates. Now, these particular pile of texture plates came from the dollar store. I think there was 4 in a package, something like that. I can't tell you which ones came with which ones, but I think there are several that are leaves. They're plastic. They have 2 sides to them. And on the jelly plate, it's pretty hard to use the indented side. I usually use the raised side. That back side is hard to use. Not a big deal. Some of these I haven't even used. There are other texture plates you can buy. I actually have a set of more expensive ones, but they weren't handy when I was looking for texture plates. They came from the art supply store. Now, these are plastic ones that I bought. You don't have to have plastic plates that you purchase. There are all kinds of other things. This happens to be some cardboard texture plates that I made, and I will link to up in the corner to where I made them. They're made out of corrugated cardboard. These are silicone hot pads. The orange one, the round one, is one of my favorite tools when I'm just plating things for myself. That's a texture plate for polymer clay, and it works fine. That happens to be a dollar store plate for Legos. I happen to like it a lot and use it just like a texture plate. We're going to be using our standard copy paper today, the long kind, just because I like the long kind, and I have lots of it, and our regular old craft paint. I really like craft paint, I've told you before, because it dries quickly. It seems to work really well on the jelly plate. Now, there are techniques where other paints would work better. Down the road, we'll probably get to some. If you see there, I'm just sort of stamping on the plate, on the jelly plate, and then stamping off. Now, those texture plates have edges on them, and it will leave the impression of the edge. It doesn't bother me. I kind of like the added texture layer to it. One of these days, I might try trimming off the edges a little to see if I'm happier with it. I'm not going to clean my plate in between today, so there will be stuff that ends up on the next pull. I'm going to try to use all the different kinds of texture plates just so you can see them. Really and truly, texture plates are kind of like a stamp. You squash into the jelly plate, lift it off. I usually stamp off over on my brayer paper and then keep going. And I was doing this quickly for y'all. Now here's where I go in and I layer in a second plate, giving me a different kind of texture in there. Now I've been making these videos one technique or one kind of product at a time. That does not mean that when I go to jelly plate, that's the way I do it. I often use multiple tools, multiple types of tools on my plate at one time. I might use a texture plate and a mark making tool, or I might scrape paint and then use a texture plate. That must have been a paint booger. You know, we really don't like paint boogers. Turquoise and purple is one of my favorite combinations for some reason. Now I did put tape on the back of my texture plates, makes it easier to pull it up. And I think I'm going to go in here. Yes, I went in there with my silicone tool mat. That one has squares on it. If you're, I'm showing how I paper piece. I sort of piece together multiple designs, multiple colors, multiple prints on a piece of paper quite often. See, that one's got 3 different techniques on it, or 3 different patterns. Must have taken a minute to decide what color I wanted to play with. Anytime you put orange with things other than yellow or red, you tend to get a brown color, and that's okay as far as I'm concerned. It's just a little bit different. And if you look at the paper on the right, you can see where some of the design kind of comes off on the paper. You do want to rub it down, make sure it's very smooth before you start pulling things off. I use a lot of copy paper. I like copy paper for the other things I do with my jelly prints, but you can use any kind of paper you want, really. Textured paper is going to give you a texture, and it's not going to pick up the paint quite as much. Say watercolor paper that's real textured, it's going to pick it up with a texture in itself. Deli wrap is fabulous. It's a great collage paper. Tissue paper, pattern paper. I showed in the very first video that you can pretty much use any kind of paper you want. You just have to be careful. Old book paper does tear easily, and I known it to stick to the plate. So that is, one of the things that can be a problem. I hope you're enjoying this series of videos. I know that for most of you who have played with your plates, these are very simple techniques. But I wanted to start this series for people who are a little bit leery of getting out their plate. Every day I hear someone say, I have one, but I've never used it. I've said it before, I don't clean my plate to speak of every time. That's where I stamped off, just so you know. I really like this print. I do like the straight lines in it with the leaves. I may see if I can get a second set of these plates so that I can cut up one set and not the other, simply because I have a feeling I like it both ways. I like leaves and circles, so both of those things get used in my work quite a bit. Leaves, circles, and butterflies. Yeah. And that's how I patchwork. I just put multiple prints on the same piece of paper. That's an interesting piece. It is so not done. It needs a lot more work over the top of it. And that's another thing. Just because it's a pull and it's a jelly print doesn't mean that you can't go over it again once it's dry. I often pick up prints off the drying space and go again. That's another print I really like how it came out. It's got some of the texture plate that's got the writing on it, which is really cool. And it picked up some of the leftover paint from something else. These are just where I stamped off when I took my plate and I stamped off and finished, just to get the paint off the plate. Now, that doesn't mean that's a finished piece either. It very likely will get another layer of something over it. Every time you layer, your prints get more depth. Anyways, guys, go have fun. Make some art. Bye-bye.